Now, this past Friday, the 27th of January, day after Australia Day, was World Holocaust Remembrance Day, a day dedicated to the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. On the same day, yes, the same day, in Jerusalem, as worshippers attended Sabbath services, a major terror attack took place. An Arab Palestinian opened fire on innocent civilians in a Jewish synagogue, in their place of worship, killing 7 people, injuring at least 3. And then it gets worse. Footage has emerged showing people in the streets of Israel and Gaza celebrating the massacre. Now, in the past 24 hours, yes, that's celebrating the death of innocent Jews worshipping. In the past 24 hours, there has been another terrorist incident in Jerusalem. In broad daylight, a 13-year-old Palestinian boy. Remember how often on this show we've talked about the way the Palestinian extremists and others, the UN and so on, sponsored by the UN and others, actually teach kids this sort of stuff. This is what you see. A 13-year-old Palestinian boy shot a father and son, leaving them seriously wounded. Joining us now to discuss these horrific attacks is Israel's Special Envoy for Combating Anti-Semitism, Noa Tishby. Noa, always great to see you. Can I just ask you, where is the world outrage against Jews being murdered on World Holocaust Remembrance Day?
Nowhere to be found, to be honest. And also the irony, which did not skip any of the Jewish community, seemed to not have penetrated regular media anywhere. Yes, on World Holocaust Remembrance Day, a terrorist attack. And people tried to make false equivalency to a raid that happened in Jenin 2 days prior to that, which of course was in order to stop an upcoming terrorist attack. So it seems like anti-Semitism is very much around, and now it's new and improved and has various new faces to it, including trying to murder Jews in Israel.
James?
No, it's terrible that we have to talk about this under such such sad circumstances, but last year in September, the Australian government restored funding, the new Labor government restored funding to the UN RWA, the Refugee Works Association, in the West Bank and Gaza, giving them $20 million a year. This is a group that calls for the right of return, that perpetuates the idea that Palestinians remain refugees from Israel, and all of this rhetoric. What is your message to governments like the Australian government that continue to fund these sorts of organizations that perpetuate the narrative that drives these sorts of terrorist attacks?
Well, this is a great question. I have a whole chapter in my book about UNRWA. UNRWA is very much a racket in order to perpetuate a Palestinian victimhood and not actually find a solution for the Palestinian issue. I wouldn't so much talk to the Australian government. I would talk to the Australian people and the American people. This is taxpayers' money that is going unaccounted for to an organization which does some good things, but also does some horrific things. And as you said, sponsors or educate young people to for jihad and for terrorism. So this is something that the Australian public actually needs to notice. This is, again, perpetuating anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish racism, and hate, and is not going to bring a solution for anything that's happening between Israel and the Palestinian people.
Rita?
There's been polling done across Europe, also in the US. I don't doubt it would be similar results here in Australia, that so many young people, and I'm not just talking about teenagers, but people, millennials, as well as Zoomers, who are so ignorant about the Holocaust. They could not tell you basic facts. I mean, is there anything we can do to counter that? Because I think that feeds into the anti-Semitism we are seeing, is this baseline of ignorance where they have no concept of what happened not that long ago.
Absolutely. And these numbers are horrific, and they're anywhere and everywhere in the world. That needs to be countered with education, education, and education. When you look at what's happening today, there's a new form of Holocaust denial. So there is a definition called the IRA definition, which is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of what anti-Semitism is. Holocaust denial and distortion is a form of anti-Semitism. And now we're seeing a new form of anti-Semitism, which is related to the Holocaust, which is called Holocaust revisionism. So there's a whole bunch of people online and offline that are saying, yeah, okay, the Holocaust happened, but was it really that bad? Let's revisit the numbers. Let's revisit the gas chambers. And this is a horrific trend that we need to combat. The Holocaust was one of the worst genocides in the history of humanity, certainly the worst genocide to occur to the Jewish people. And this is one of those things we say never again in order to learn from history. We have to continue educating humanity about the horrors of the Holocaust in order for it to never happen again, not just for the Jewish people, to any people in the world, ever.
Can I just ask you about that specific point, Noa? Yep. Because I was interested to see King Charles and Camilla on World Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is fantastic. But there seems to be part of that revisionism, if you like, is, well, it wasn't just the Jewish Holocaust. It wasn't just what happened to the Jews. It kind of, let's look at all Holocausts in inverted commas. In other words, all genocides. The woman in that photo there was from Darfur, Amun Adam. That was a dreadful, dreadful event, the genocide in Darfur in Western Sudan. But is it, I know this is a sensitive subject, but is it really the time and place? Shouldn't World Holocaust be about remembering that event in the late 30s and 40s under Adolf Hitler, and the murder and targeting specifically of Jewish women, men and children, as opposed to the broader issue of man's inhumanity to man?
Yes, absolutely. Look, the Holocaust, the specific Holocaust actually occurred targeting the world's quote unquote Jewish problem. So the Nazis identified a problem with the existence of Jews in the world and said, we're just going to rid the world of the Jews and everything is going to be fine. In that particular Holocaust, obviously, other communities were targeted as well, but the Jews were the main ones. This was entirely about the Jewish people. Having said that, International Holocaust Remembrance Day is on January 27, which is the day Auschwitz was liberated. That is a very specific Jewish Holocaust Remembrance Day. I don't oppose, obviously, other Holocaust Remembrance Day, other Genocide Remembrance Day, but the Holocaust is specifically for Jewish people, and I believe that we should keep it that way.
James? And no, I mean, you mentioned before, the defensive moves in Jenin earlier this week, and then people say, oh, well, it's all part of the same tit for tat sort of thing. But I mean, I think we really need to clarify this, because there's a couple of points that flow from this. You do get to this point where saying, oh, I'm just anti-Israel, well, that really is anti-Jewish. And where you really see most of this coming from, I think, while there are, of course, pockets of anti-Semitism on the very far right, really the mainstreaming of anti-Semitism does seem to be on the left. Here in Australia, the Greens have had trouble with adopting the international definition of anti-Semitism. And you get this idea that Israel, alone among states, doesn't have the right to defend itself. Can you speak to this idea and why this comes so much from the left?
Absolutely. I speak about this every single day. It's my passion to educate the world about this. So thank you for giving me the stage to do so. The thing about anti-Semitism is it kind of comes from the far right, the far left, and radical Islam. The far right is very easy to identify and to call out. Radical Islam is also pretty easy to call out and identify. The far left is the one that's been kind of like eluding us in the past few years. It's been a very long time that I actually been working in this field. The far left identification of Israel, of anti-Semitism, is the obsessive demonization of the Jewish state. And it's one of those things where people go, oh, no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm only an anti-Zionist. I'm not against Jewish people, just against the Jewish state. And I'm like, okay, first of all, how many Jews are living in the Jewish state? You can't uncouple these two things. And the second question is, which other country would you like to dismantle? And naturally, there's no answer to that, because this disproportionate obsession is saved for the Jewish state. So it's one of those things that I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, that a lot of them don't actually notice this. And it's some sort of a subconscious bias. But the fact of the matter is, Israel is the only country in the world in which her existence is being questioned. Israel is the only country in the world that has its own Wikipedia entry, the legitimacy of the state of Israel. No other country in the world has that.
Yeah.
No other country in the world. And that happens to be Jewish. So
you say the far left, but is it the far left? Haven't the left succeeded in mainstreaming this new anti-Semitism because it's rampant on university campuses?
Let me put it this way. Let me talk specifically about the United States, because this is where I live and work the majority of the time. This is still fringe voices within the Democratic side of the political system. Having said that, they're very popular. So we're extraordinarily concerned about these voices coming out. These voices, they go to the Met Gala. They are the kind of like cool kids on the block, and they're the ones that saying that Israel should not exist. And I'm here to say, if you're denying one people's right to exist, and that's the Jewish people, that's anti-Semitism.
Noa Tishby, always great to chat to you. Real wisdom there, and our thoughts and sympathies from our audience as well for so many people, Jewish people who will know people who have suffered in those terrorist attacks there. That it happened on World Holocaust Remembrance Day is just sick beyond belief.